مساء الخير. مساء الخير يا جماعة، نحن معكم من واشنطن، وحنبتدي البرنامج بس باللغة الإنجليزية، فأنا حقدم البرنامج بعدين نورا حتقدمكم. This is a first of a series of podcasts on the question of politics in the time of Corona, produced by Status Al-Wada podcast. And my name is Bassam Haddad. With me is Noor Ariqat from Washington. We are going to interview you for this first episode, and I will let Noura introduce you. Thank you very much for joining us at this very difficult time. Noura?
أهلا وسهلا، تفضلوا على السياسة بوقت الكورونا, politics in the time of corona, to get a sense of how people are responding to this crisis all over the world. And the first place on our mind is Gaza, where we have learned, or Gaza, where we have learned that there have been the first two cases in an area that's already been under siege, now approaching 14 years, where we understand that there's only 60 ventilators across the country, where hospitals are already lacking 42% of essential medical supplies. So when we hear that this has reached Gaza, it's a different level of concern and crisis. And so we are so grateful to you, Dr. Salam, Ustaz Isam, for joining us in the program. And so we just want to start off by asking you, how are you doing? How are you and your families doing?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Actually, I knew that it will come to Gaza. It is a pandemic. So before the two positive cases, we were so afraid when the time will be. That was the question. So here, thanks God, we are with a good health. In dealing with corona, first you have to have a good general health. So thanks God, my family, generally my father, mother, my sisters, all of them having a good general health. But actually, because even if you are good, sometimes you are subjected to die from corona. So we are afraid.
Okay. I believe I'm quite privileged and I'm quite fine rather than other people in this trip.
Isam, you're frozen, so you're going to have to start over. Dr. Salam, you're fine.
Marhaba, hello. Yes, I don't know why I got disconnected, but I was saying that I'm good. I'm in good health, and it's I'm trying to cope up with the situation if it could happen that this virus is spread among the people. We are trying to cope up with the reality that we are on a brink of a disaster. We have been already in this for the past 14 years with the lack of medical equipments, with the lack of economic, situation, with the poverty rate, with the unemployment rate. So in so many different levels, we have been suffering so far, but imagining a different level of a crisis of a pandemic virus here in Gaza Strip, it's totally a different manner.
Both of you mentioned that this is something that you've anticipated. I'm imagining that you've anticipated how would you all respond to a public health crisis, and not specifically corona, but something like it. Is that what you meant? Can you address that?
Yeah, of
yes.
course. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So being a doctor, I can understand this very well because I understand what corona means medical. In epidemiology, you have a very virulent virus. So yeah, I just know it will come. And if Gaza was said before the two cases, it takes some time to come to Gaza because, as you know, that Gaza is under siege for long And I think this is the only advantage of being under siege, because there's no many people entering Gaza. So the corona will be delayed, but it will come sooner or later. And anything happening on this earth will, by the media, the social media, the YouTube, the news, you understand it, and you have your own idea about it, because we are now like a small village. So we can understand, and we can analyze data, and we can know that things are coming or not. And being a doctor, hearing about the corona, understanding things from the media, from the medical articles, I knew that it will come. And most of people in the medical field here understand that it will come sooner or later. But it is a matter of
Yes, I totally agree with Dr. Salam, but when it comes to comparison, what Gaza has been suffering so far for the past 14 years, we have been already living a crisis, a humanitarian one. When it compared to a pandemic and what the Gaza could face at some point, when it compared to a pandemic virus, which the people are, I would say, after four deadly wars, after 14 years of imprisonment, after those, the horrific scenes of the Great March of Return, people have do not realize what is really happening and do not feel afraid of what is going to happen. At some point, after a lot of suffering, people feel that they are emotionless of what is going to happen to their lives and to their families. And I can summarize a little bit of the insight of how the people reacted towards the virus and towards the news that the virus is coming to Gaza. So before the submission, the press release of the coronavirus is in Gaza, people reacted in different ways, which show a finest, I would say, paradox of how the people are living. Like, for example, during the Great March of Return, people are dying. At the backside of the Great March of Return, people are laughing and are playing. At the same time, during the COVID-19, people reacted at a similar level. They made fun of the coronavirus. They were laughing at people infected. They have been thinking that, okay, we have been living the worst. During the war, we have been bombed. Hundreds of us died. Thousands of us, injured. But still, we have lived so far. And there is a kind of mentality that we are immune to die, and somehow we have been living the worst, and such unseen virus would not I would say would not kill us. So this is part of the people, part of those who are facing, I would say, an ignorant level of education to underestimate such virus. But other people who are absolutely terrified because they are aware of the situation, they have been observing what Gaza is needing for the past 14 years, and when they are thinking or imagining that what Gaza would face a pandemic virus, they know what disaster is coming and what doomed future they are feeling. They are feeling that is coming. So part of the people that, for example, during my engagement with the writers of We Are Not Numbers, large numbers of them are educated from a medical perspective, from educational perspective. They know what could happen, and they feel very terrified as much as I am, to myself, to the people, to my family, to what could happen. Talking about the capacity of the Gaza Strip, we realize that Gaza, for example, I'm going to give two examples that like there is absolutely no hospital in the city of Rafah, which estimated of a population more than a quarter of a million. So you can imagine what should happen to them. And I'm going to and the max precautions what Gaza can do at Al Shifa Hospital, which only takes a capacity of 500 beds, while the population of Gaza City itself is more than half a million. So you can imagine from this estimate and those statistics, I can imagine that it is something really worse that Gaza has never seen before. And the
I,
people, we are trying to educate the people. We are trying to tell them that at some point the government is not doing anything, and it is a matter of
Is
responsibility. It's a life and death story here.
عصام and دكتورة سلام, this was my next question. دكتورة سلام, انت يعني حابب احكي بالعربي الصراحة. دكتورة سلام, given this dire situation in terms of readiness, what are you aware of in terms of the preparations? Unfortunately, if something horrible continues to happen in Gaza like it has been happening elsewhere, what is the level of preparedness? What is being done? I mean, what Isam just shared is
Yeah,
pretty
the
scary.
situation will be actually the situation will be so terrifying and uh, I can't imagine what will happen because according to statistics, about 80% of the people, at least 80% of the people will get infected. Among those 80%, you will have about two-thirds of them will be mild cases, but the last third will be as a severe cases. And in Gaza, we have 2 millions, so 2 million individuals. So it will be the number of severe cases will be thousands. And if you know that the ICU beds is only 60 and those one third with the severe cases will need ventilators, and we don't have mechanical ventilators to support the respiration. It will be a disaster. And in the same time, the medical staff, okay, we have a number of medical staff, but the problem is with personal protective equipment. We don't have enough gloves, neither masks, gowns, the gels, the basic things that are needed to face this corona is not available. For example, I'm working now in the Obs and Gyna department in Nasser Hospital, and my night shift was yesterday. And when we asked about a mask, they tell us that there is no masks available at this because we are waiting for the real crisis to happen. Then we will support you with the mask because we don't have enough number of masks, and we don't even have the proper masks. You know, we have the simple surgical ones, but the needed ones are the N95 masks, and they are not available in a good number. So I believe that if in the following few weeks we will have a very bad situation here in Gaza.
Doctora, for folks who are thinking to themselves, what we understood is that there are two infected gentlemen who were returning from travel from Pakistan, that they were quarantined upon entry from Rafah. And the idea now is that the government in Gaza has already created a complete, imposed a complete shutdown. So one hearing that might say, well, maybe this can be contained. What's your impression of the situation and the risk?
Yeah, I believe that the war is, we have to understand the two lines of corona. You have the capacity of the medical staff and the medical equipment and the ICU beds, but this is not enough. The people must understand the other line, which is the most important line in this situation, even in the developed countries generally. Because people have to understand they have to restrict their movements, and this is the secret, because the virus need people to multiply and to go from one person to another. If there is no persons in the streets to get that virus, to die. And so this secret is very important and give us a chance, but in the same time the people here must take this situation seriously and must not to be careless about the situation, because the solution is in the hand of the people. People, if they understand this chance and really stay at their homes, and the virus really will die. And China made this, and they really succeed with that. And if you see the experience in Italy, when people keep on going out their homes and going to restaurants, cafes, they finally multiply the number of mortalities and morbidities with the corona. And the situation is catastrophic in Italy and in Gaza, because you are talking about 2 millions of people in very narrow space. If people were careless about the situation, I think it will be the most catastrophe on this earth, especially with 60 beds of ICUs and 60 ventilators. The thing is very bad, really.
Are some are people staying indoors? Are they heeding these calls, or based on what you said that folks believe that they're immune from death because of they've seen the worst of worst extremities? Are they just not taking it seriously? What's going on?
Of course, after the announcement of the emergency statement, after Mahmoud Abbas, Dr. Mohammed Shtay's statement on the press that he's declaring the state of emergency, uh, once they did that, Hamas in the Gaza Strip, they excluded the strip from such emergency, and after days, they have recognized that to ask the people to at least to have the awareness that we're going to face a pandemic virus, and you people need to educate yourself, you need to stay at homes, etc. So after those days, the announcement of the emergency situation, the government did not even force the people to stay at homes. And I mean by that, once we heard the news that the virus is in the West Bank in Bethlehem, we felt terrified because we know the situation in Gaza Strip is totally different story. So we kept demanding that there should be an immediate closure to both borders, because the Gaza situation is totally different than other areas. The humanitarian crisis here is really worst in its worst cases. So I know that there are sacrifices should be done to those people outside of the strip after the closure, but it should happen. Once they underestimated the virus and they did not have the awareness to take the proper precaution steps to do that, there is a submission of two coronavirus cases in Gaza Strip, and this is really destroying, because if we're talking about the people themselves don't have the proper awareness, they don't have the precaution teachings to face such pandemic virus. If they don't have that, okay, the government should do something, but they did not do anything. They kept just asking the people to take a precaution and stay home. They're not forcing, like for example, a law
Are
to
you
not to
even
go
now?
outside.
Are you saying even now the government has not
Yeah,
imposed a closure?
yeah. Yeah, of course. The borders are still closed. They are still receiving people. And those people, the submission of the two cases, after 5 days of demanding on the social media, of sending a proposal, sending demands to those in lead to close the borders. I know it's really difficult to leave people outside, but it's really a loss that we can take rather than just leaving the people or just allowing the people to come. And we know that Gaza is not standing in any chance to face this virus because of the people. It's not related only to the people education, but it's also related to the people's mentality in such a crisis. I know people have been suffering, or let's say people suffered during the four deadly wars on Gaza. And people have this kind of thinking that, okay, we have lived the hardest times during the wars, and such a virus would not affect us. So if you go down the streets right now, you can find a lot of gatherings. You can people in the markets. You can see that people are trying, or let's say acting just a normal life, which is really dangerous. And I know that because I have seen such an example of Italy, for example. People are not learning of others' mistakes. We are trying to raise awareness. They have announced today, and finally, they have announced the closure of the mosques. They have announced the closure of the wedding halls. They have announced the closure of gyms, etc., of any kind of, let's say, public sector that people would gather in. But still, they're ignoring the fact that they should enforce a law to forbid the people to go outside. This is really critical. I know they have been taking a lot of procedures to deal with the cases, and there is a lot of rumors roaming around the story of the two cases coming to Gaza Strip and being engaged before they go into the quarantine center. But people are terrified. I am terrified, and a lot of people are following the situation in I mean in every second. We want to know what is going to happen. afraid that if this virus is out of any quarantine center, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a really disaster in compared to what Gaza situation on a health perspective, on an economic perspective. Also talking about such a precautions, the government is totally ignoring the economic crisis that those people who are depending on a daily salary, I mean daily earnings. A lot of people, 90% of the Gazans are living under the poverty rate, under the poverty, estimated numbers. There are many people, and the majority of them are depending on a daily, earnings of their markets, of their personal businesses, or so on. They have not taken a single step to cover to compensate those people, because if it happened that there is a law to forbid the people to go outside, those people would be affected first. A lot of them will be hungry. A lot of them would not have the capacity to feed their children. So in so many different levels, the government have failed to keep this virus outside Gaza, and until so far, after the submission of the two cases, they are still failing to implement the laws needed to protect the people.
طب Assam and Dr. Salam, given that there is a shirking of responsibility at some level by the authorities, what have the associations, the societal, civil society, مجتمع أهلي associations, what have they been doing to raise awareness, to push people to act in a certain way, to provide support for those who are not able to provide for themselves under these increasingly difficult circumstances? Besides the government, is there a movement at the level of societal associations? Dr. Salam.
Okay. I'm part of a party here, Hizb al-Shab, and they are starting to gather volunteers, and those volunteers will bring that hand gel and some few gloves that they managed to have them from many associations in Gaza, and they are trying to a small gathering of people and to make some educations about how to protect yourself from corona, and they are trying to make home visits to the people, taking the protective measures. But I think those movements are, yes, they are important, but are not they are not enough, because you have 2 million of people. You cannot cover all of those people, and I don't think that there is way to catch them all, because if one person is taking things not seriously, not being serious with the situation, only one person, it will affect the whole community. This is the problem. Uh, so if a group of people were serious but others were careless, the careless will affect the serious. So I think those movements are important, but those are not enough to change the situation. But as I hear from the government said that now we don't have to make a complete curfew, because the 2 positive cases were in the quarantine, and they were not in a connection with people from outside the quarantine, and the whole people who were in the same quarantine with them in the school, they take they take uh, they take specimens from them, and they were all of them negative. So the government said that in this situation we don't have to take further steps according to make a complete review.
Yes, I totally agree. I know that my previous talk about the government failure is really I'm trying to make them a little bit responsible of what is happening. But at the other point, I can't really blame the government or neither the associations found in Gaza Strip. I know that Gaza has been suffocated for the past 14 years with an intentional policy to ignore the health improvements or development sector. I know that, but what I'm playing and what I'm making them responsible of is at the very least to raise the people awareness. Talking about the those associations inside Gaza, and their efforts, some of them are really negative because they don't have the proper methodologies, have how they are, how they have to dealing with such situation. Taking an example that we have seen so far on the social media yesterday, one of the association, and they are working with the government, of course, they have been doing the temperature testing in a public market with a lot of gathering. Hundreds of people are gathering, which is absolutely nonsense. We have been demanding to shut down their activity. We have been demanding to help them the responsibility of doing such activity because it's not helping the people. I know there are other positive activities that other associations are doing. For example, they have been working on the streets to spread instructions and tips of how to avoid contact, to keep the social distancing, to trying to give a little bit of advice to the public to raise awareness. But I know that is from even from this perspective, it's not enough. I'm talking about the capacity of how we can help the people, of how we can take more precautions. Gaza's capacity is absolutely in its lowest phase. We have been consumed so far by the siege. We have been consumed so far during the deadly wars. Also, the people mentality are totally different. We don't know. And for myself, I'm trying to do my best to raise the youth awareness because I believe they are the key towards raising other people's awareness. We're trying to give them, to hold them responsibilities that you guys, you are the key to change this. You are the key to help the people, to make them understand. I believe some of you are sons and daughters of families, and those families can talk to others, to neighborhoods, and we can spread awareness. We need to try. We realize that our hands are really short and our efforts are really little, but this is absolutely the thing that we can do. We have absolutely nothing to do other
We
than
totally are with you and hear you and appreciate your efforts. I heard you mention social media multiple times, and in a time like this, social media is actually a vehicle for a lot of this activism and advocacy. We want to thank you so, so much for being with us, Isam, Dr. Salam. We know that we're going to be following the situation closely, and we hope that in the future that you all stay safe and healthy and that we can have you back to discuss developments in the next coming weeks.
Thank you.
سؤال one more.
Thank you.
شكرا كثير دكتور سلام and عصام. Just one question, given how our culture operates, even here, are people actually doing this when they see each other? Are they doing this when they هيك عم بيسلموا على بعض ولا بس ماشي التعبيط والتبويس؟
ما بعبطوا ولا ببوسوا.
لا حتى الشباب ما عادش
صبايا صحيح.
ما لها علاقة.
اليوم فهي انا بعتقد اهل غزه لسه بدهم 3 أسابيع.
الله يعين الله يعين ان شاء الله خير.
شويه ناس لحتى يقتنعوا. الله يعين.
انت عصام بمدينه غزه ودكتوره انت برضه بالمدينه. نعم
رفح.
انت بجنوب.
ما عمل لك فسيخ، اكل فسيخ.
طب من الفسيخ ما بياكلوهوش بالشمال يعني؟
هذيك اقرب على مصر. بعدين ما
وانت دكتوره وين؟
فيكي ما تقربي علي بليز كثير.
ايوه.
طيب جماعة، نحن ما رح ناخذ أكثر من وقتكم، بس يمكن نرجع نحكي معكم بعد فترة ومتمنى انه تكونوا دائما يعني بسلام وبخير
وعلى اليوم انه نكون عندكم. انا هذا حلمي على فكره، بيعرف عصام.
اكيد.
وبنضل على اتصال. Thank you so much for your time and please stay safe.
Thank you guys.
سلام. مع السلامة.
سلام.